guys! I hope you're all doing well. My name is Aaliya and I'm an incoming PhD student somewhere in Canada. In today's video, I'm going to be speaking to my friend Aasiyah about mental health. A few folks sent me questions on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we are going to answer all your questions, but I thought that this conversation would take like 20 minutes tops. I was very wrong. So we're going to stagger the conversation into 3 or 4 episodes, and this is the episode where we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. And then in the future, we're going to be talking about navigating anxiety. Some people were interested in pursuing therapy as a career, so we're also going to be talking about that in the very last episode. I hope that this video is helpful. I hope it's entertaining. I'll see you later, or you'll see me. You'll see me in the video and probably in future videos. Thanks so much for watching. Yeah.
Really obvious. Okay. Hi guys, my name is Aaliya and I am an incoming PhD student somewhere in Canada, and today I'm joined by like my bestie.
My name's Aasiyah. I'm a social worker and I have an undergrad in psychology.
Yeah, and today she's going to be answering our mental health questions. I asked folks to send questions about navigating mental health in graduate school. Aasiyah has a master's in social work. She also has a lot of experience as a therapist. She's worked as a therapist, and you also come from like a family of therapists, right?
Yeah, we've had a few folks in my family who are really interested in psychology. So my mom did her undergrad in psychology. My sister's a psychotherapist. And so I am a social worker, but I'm really excited that you're doing this topic. I think it's so important. Yeah. When we're looking at mental health, especially at the graduate level, and even, you know, further education, PhD, and even in workplaces, right? I think it's something that
because it has like long-term effects, right?
Exactly.
Like the mental health impacts that you're gonna have in grad school you're gonna find yourself experiencing them in your work environment, and it's gonna be unpleasant. So it's good to have strategies in place to start working through them. Another reason Aasiyah is like a great person to ask is because she's always done anti-racist work. So she started out doing Palestine solidarity work. Even now she does Islamophobia education work. So today we're going to be talking to you about things like imposter syndrome, anxiety, and some folks just wanted general information about how to become a therapist, and Aasiyah is going to answer all those questions.
Awesome. Thank you for sending in your questions.
Yeah, and before we get into the questions, we just want to plug People's Defense. I like to plug local organizations, so if you have information or if you're doing cool work with a cool organization that is doing work in Canada, please send it my way, and we might share you on our page. People's Defense is doing really great work around fighting against mass evictions in the city of Toronto and Mountain, so they're doing a lot of cross-regional work, and so you should send them your money. None of us want to see more homelessness in the GTA, so you should be supporting the work that they do. So before we kind of get into the questions that people sent us, we just want to start with a legal disclaimer.
That's true. That's a good point.
Because Aasiyah hasn't had an opportunity to do like a diagnostic. Like if you are experiencing mental health issues, it's important that you seek a therapist, or you look for strategies to work through those issues, because although this is a small channel and I'm sure I know a lot of you, there's no way that as a therapist she knows your full story. So also we're broke, like she works in nonprofit, I'm a student, we can't afford if you sue us we can't afford that, so please, legal disclaimer. So let's get into the questions. So one question that I got a couple of times was how do you work through imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good question. You know, people use that term really loosely. People kind of use it in like day-to-day language, but there's also a psychological element to imposter syndrome. People can technically have it as a psychological kind of condition where they're constantly doubting themselves. They don't feel like they're necessarily in charge or able to succeed at what they're doing. They constantly question their place in society or their place at their work. It's like constant self-doubt, basically, right? In a lot of spaces, I think, depending on your identity, but like, for example, being a racialized Muslim woman, just the way society has like constructed your identity, you're constantly having to question your place.
You usually have to take on that role where you're fighting back the stereotype when you're not in a Muslim, like a Muslim majority environment, right?
Exactly. So there's like that added pressure, right? So you're already feeling like you're othered in some form or another, so it's like kind of like you already don't belong, and then on top of that, having feelings of like being inadequate, or like
I'm not good enough, right?
Exactly. And I think I suffered from that a lot, like especially at the beginning of my master's, because it's a very small program. about like 20 people in the entire program, and it's a social work program, right?
Yeah.
So social work is basically you are constantly having to reflect on your identity.
So it would be different from like what I would have done, for example, where you're like an expert and you're looking from the outside. I feel like that's a strength in social work.
Yeah, I know some schools do it better than others. If you're going to a school that is doing it from like an AOP lens, then it will be a strength, I think. It would enable you to kind of like own that. Like, for example, I was one of the only hijabi Muslim woman in the class.
Yeah.
So
and that's kind of funny because there was like 2 of us in my program, and like our program was not very people of color friendly.
Yeah.
When I was doing my master's, and there was 2 of us, but then you went to like this very progressive school, and you were the only one. Okay. Were there other like Muslim women?
There was one other Muslim woman.
Oh, we had 3.
Wow.
Out of the 5 people of color, 3 of us were Muslims.
So it's very interesting. Like, I think in general though, grad school, like just the experience of being in kind of higher education or even like a PhD program, you are bound to feel this kind of sense of like, do I actually belong here? Do I deserve it?
Are they tokenizing me?
Yeah, I was feeling that until basically the end of the program. Yeah, I think. Yeah. But the way I guess I dealt with it, I think you just have to find your supports in the class. Like, it could even be just that one person you can go to. I didn't have a ton of close friends in the class, but you just need that one like person you can go to be just like to just chat about stuff.
Yeah, like
and
vent.
Exactly, to vent it out. And it doesn't even have to be someone in the program. It could be someone who like you just happen to see who's in a different cohort. It could be anything like that. But I think you need a person at least.
It's interesting that you said that because when I was having like orientation, so we had Zoom orientation because it's a pandemic. One of the main things that our graduate program directors, well, he said 3 things which were like so great. One of them was do exercise.
I love how you remember all of that.
He was like do exercise, eat well, which I'm like very strongly believe in. Don't know if I always implement it. But the other one was to form a community, because he said that students don't tend to succeed if they don't have friends.
It's true.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, right? Like the sense of community, because it could be so alienating. Yeah. Like the experience of it all. Like depending on your program, obviously every program is different. But I just felt like constantly having to reflect on my identity. Like after a while, it gets very heavy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like constantly being reminded of how crappy systems are, or like that you're a part of a system, but you're trying to change the system. And so it's a very like weird draining place to be sometimes. Yeah. But obviously every program is different. Social work and just the actual program I went to in social work was very much reflective and was a critical based kind of program. But yeah, so imposter syndrome, I think the best way to kind of tackle it, like in many ways I would fake it till I made it. So like I know it sounds kind of superficial and ridiculous, but it does help. Sometimes like if I had a presentation, I would dress nice. I would wear a certain color hijab. Wear lipstick, like whatever it is that kind of gives you that kind of sense of comfort is something that I would recommend. Obviously finding the community that you need and like affirming who you are as a person, because you're the only one in that place, regardless of the program. You're the only one who's you. So no one else can own your story, no one else can own your strengths, no one else is you. And so just reminding yourself that, you know, you're bringing something unique to this program that no one else can and no one else is.
And this is especially the case if you're like pushing the narrative, right? Like if you're challenging what the school is producing, like in knowledge production, because they're gonna tell you that like what you're saying is not true or it's not reflective of that discipline, whatever. That was an experience I had, and I'm just like, it's clicking to me now that like that was part of what made me feel like I didn't know what I was doing.
But and it's
like,
so draining to constantly feel like that.
To feel like invalidated because you're pushing back on the narrative in place. But anyway, back to what you were saying.
Reminding yourself of like why you worked hard to get there, right? You made you did your statement, or you got those like whatever references, and we'll talk a little bit more about references too. But I mean, you are in there for a reason, right? They vetted you. They chose you. And so I think just kind of reminding yourself of that. I think even in placement, if you do have a program that has placement, or even like a workplace environment, it's very easy for us to, again, to fall into that. Like even post-school, like we're like, oh my gosh, like now I'm in the workplace, I don't have any work experience, or I don't have this, or whatever it may be. And you know, that's a legit concern. I remember at my placement, I felt like uncomfortable sometimes to like bring things up, even though I noticed like the way we wrote case notes sometimes were extremely problematic. The language that we used. I remember having an indigenous client and some of the language in his file was really problematic.
Yeah.
So just kind of being able to, like, as a student, you actually bring a really fresh perspective to some organizations are very stale. Like, they've been like that forever, right?
Yeah.
And so having like a supervisor that is like on your side is awesome. But even if you don't, being strategic, obviously, you do want to ensure that you get your hours and you finish, but also holding what you believe to a high standard as well, because it can be really draining if you're going into a place where you don't believe what they're doing, or you feel like you're constantly having to, like, you know, make yourself smaller to fit in or whatever. So I think, yeah, with imposter syndrome, sorry, I'm going off on tangents.
No,
but
it's okay. Yeah.
with imposter syndrome, I think in terms of work, like just reminding yourself that you do bring something fresh to the table. You're a student, actually, so you can sometimes, depending on your role, you can actually challenge the status quo in different ways. Like, I remember when I left my first placement, I didn't like how they talked about certain clients in meetings, so I wrote them a letter after I left, talking about like the language that was used, the problematic nature of like the way they were.
She's very proactive. I feel like when I quit jobs, I'm like,
well, I did it after I left. I probably wouldn't do it while I was there because I didn't feel safe to do it. But yeah, like, so that was my way of being like, okay, like I did sit through some of those meetings even though I didn't believe in them, but now I'm gonna kind of let you know what I think, and that was helpful for me, like, to kind of let them know and hold them accountable a little bit. But yeah, I think imposter syndrome in school or work is very normal. I think it's just something like most of us are gonna feel. I think you just have to find your community. You have to affirm why you're there and remind yourself of.
What do you think of like writing affirmations? Those
I
types
love
of things?
that. Like, if people are into it, I really love that. Like, I remember I would sometimes, like, if you are on transit or commuting, like I would just take out my notes sometimes on my phone and just write like some like thoughts or like things that come to mind. Even, it sounds a little bit silly, but looking in the mirror, literally looking at yourself, saying a few really nice things to yourself in the morning. Like, you know, I'm intelligent, I'm brave, and just kind of like making that kind of the first thing that you kind of share with yourself in the morning is really nice. Research suggests, say you've had a bad experience and you've had 5 amazing things happen to you, you're gonna remember that bad thing. So it's like a ratio of 1 to 5, right? So you could imagine, like, if you have experienced invalidation or the sense of like, I don't belong here, you need to kind of really step it up in terms of trying to remind yourself of like all the good qualities you have, because you're there for a reason. And just reminding yourself of that and surrounding yourself with people who remind you of that too.
Good answer.
Yeah,
I like that. So like, if you were to suggest 3 things, if I was to like quick fire you 3 things that you would tell people with imposter syndrome to do, what would those 3 things be?
Oh, okay, I like it. I would say I would say know yourself really well. So write down all your strengths and the things that, you know, make you who you are. So it could be the really hard stuff that you've been through and you've overcome. Whatever makes you you and your strengths, write those down and remind yourself of them on a regular basis. Find your community. So it could be a classmate, it could be some random outlet that you found on campus, it could be a group, it could be like anything that just kind of restores that sense of comfort on campus is really important. And connectedness. The final thing I would say is like, actually write out if you're comfortable, write out a script for yourself in terms of like a self-affirmation, right? So some people might choose to do it as a journal, like, you know, I am this, or today I was whatever, I did this really well. Just constantly remind yourself of kind of your strengths. You just need that kind of repetitive.
So I'm starting in September and I'm gonna try to implement those things. Okay, so another question that I got had to do with anxiety. We're just talking about boys. Navigating mental health in grad school. We forgot to record. Aaliya, what is happening today? Aasiyah is a
social worker.
1 minute. Let's just start over.
Okay. Let's do it.